Welcome back to Spitballin Cards. In today's episode, we have Cardboard Consensus. This is an episode where I will say a statement, and then each of us will hold up our fingers on a scale of 1 to 5 if we agree or disagree. 1 is disagree, 5 is agree. In this episode, you have the whole cast besides Chris, who will be back next week. Ready for the first question?
Bang, let's go.
The strike is going to kill baseball cards. At least, yeah, we'll just say that. You can determine everything else to yourself. 3, 2, 1, go. 4 in the short term. I was going to say short term versus long term. I think in the short term.
You just said kill cards. Kill is.
I know. That's why I said
kill, not final.
That's what I said.
Kill in the short term and then bring it back to life.
I think for
very
the short
Lazarus.
term,
very Lazarus.
It is going to hurt. I think people will be upset about it. I think it's going to hurt really bad. Prospects, going to hurt your prospect cards. Those players are going to miss a year development. And on top of that, they're it's going to hurt those type of players. All right, Ty, you said 0.
No, I'm not. I don't worry about it. We've heard all this in the past. We've seen strikes. We saw a short-term strike. We've lived through strikes. So there's no strike that's going to kill the cards. The cards are going to be fine. The market's fine. The market's hot. I worry about bigger socioeconomic things and global affairs killing cards than the strikes. It's easy for me.
94 hurt. 94 hurt a lot of perception for a long time. Is that kind of what killed that bubble back then? I'm serious. There was a huge run-up in cards.
That was overproduction.
But it's what popped it. And maybe we could say the same thing with overproduction right now. People are going to be disillusioned with sports cards.
Maybe you should set the table a little more like for the audience on strike and what that would look like. And we talked about that a couple of years ago. And
yeah, so the CBA expires in 2026 after the season. So we have 2025 and 2026, and they need to re-bargain the contract, the CBA for this next 6 years after that. And as of right now, the way that free agent spending is going, the Dodgers signing everybody, there is a push for a salary cap from the owners. Players will never agree to a salary cap. There's also a push for an international draft to stop all of the Japanese players going to the Dodgers. The players will never agree to an international draft. And so because there's a few different things, there's a very high likelihood, I'd say 50% or higher, that there is going to be some sort of work stoppage. And we saw work stoppages back in 94. We did not really see a work stoppage. You can call the one in COVID a work stoppage that happened, but that one was due to the COVID vaccine. I don't think it really counts it. We almost saw a work stoppage in 22, and then we got the CBA at the final 11th hour. So there's a lot of concern about that. And I think it'd be the dumbest thing they could possibly do for the sport of baseball and baseball cards in general, if I'm being honest. Because we saw what happened in 94. Yes, it was overproduction, but people are calling things the junk wax, junk slab, junk parallel era, junk auto era right now. So is it any different? So that is my thoughts. Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of assumptions there, which is why our ratings were all over the place there from 0 to 5 or 0 to 4. Yeah, of course it would hurt cards. I would hope that the stoppage is just like a few weeks or a few months. The last time we got really worried, and they ended up playing a full slate of games. I think the season was pushed back like a week or so in order to give them like enough time to get stretched out to do like, a shorter version of spring training or whatever. But yeah, it would suck. I mean, you look at the last few years in some of the rule changes, namely the pitch clock, shortening games by 20%. I mean, this is like instantly attributable to the success that we had with regards to viewership, attendance kind of coming back a little bit. I see that as one step in the right direction. And there's going to need to be more steps, more changes. And that's why Manfred's like, talking about all this crazy stuff that probably isn't even close to reality, but he's trying to resurrect his reputation as commissioner. Yeah, I mean, it would suck. It would suck a lot. But the crash that happened in 94, because it was also related to overproduction, that's why it spread across. It was like truly systemic, and it crushed the values of all sports cards. It wasn't just baseball.
Yeah.
So nothing like that would happen, but that's a good point. I mean, we are sort of in another overproduction era now. And so on blowout forums or here or elsewhere on YouTube, even on Reddit, when 50% of people that are talking about their goals for the upcoming year reference trimming the fat or consolidation, like a lot of us did when we talked about our goals for the hobby for the coming year. If only 30% of the 50% of the folks actually do it and do consolidate and don't buy as much and try to get out of smaller value cards. Like that equates to a recipe for prices to continue to come down on 99.99% of cards that are out there in the modern era. So that's just something there that I've picked up on. And that's been a theme for the last few years. And it doesn't seem like it's stopping. Everybody's trying to downsize. Not everybody, but a lot of people are saying they want to downsize. And sometimes, like, I'm picking up this Caminero card. I can't help myself. Hopefully it's just a short-term flip. I could see a combination of a bunch of different factors leading to a more serious decline, or it could be a good buying opportunity if there's just a work stoppage and you're getting prospects or whatever on the cheap, because a lot of people think they're going to miss the crucial 19th year of their development or whatever.
I will say, though, on top of that, there are some players I think this could hurt individually, which wasn't the question. Think of, like, I know I talk about Chris Sale. I like Chris Sale, but he has 2,400 strikeouts right now. It's his age 36 season next year, and the year after that is age 37. Let's say he has 150 those 2 years, so he has 300 total. Now he's at 2,700 or more, and if he misses his age 38 season, it's going to be hard to get to 3,000. There's going to be guys who miss milestones. You can look at younger players missing career, like peak seasons, like Juan Soto. That's going to hurt his total walks through age, whatever season. Like, it sucks when this happens. We saw this with who was the player? It was Gwynn, who was hitting 400 and didn't get the chance to finish, right?
Yeah, 394.
So it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
but then they count Sale's Japanese stats and he'll be fine.
Just to piggyback on what Scott was saying, that's why I gave it a 2. I don't think it's going to kill cards, but I do have concerns about some of the individual players who already have lost some seasons.
And Acuna would hurt.
Various things like Acuna, and even Soto. When you think about all the leaderboards we've seen of him the last couple years, like most home runs before age 25, where he's just a few behind the leaders. Then you think if he had that whole 2020 season, he'd have it all to himself. So the thought of him losing another season, that would be rough, because baseball is such a game of numbers, and we look at these guys, especially when they reach those milestones, cementing their place as all-time greats. So that's what I would be worried about on an individual level, or guys towards the end of their careers by then, like Mookie Betts. Is he going to get another 650 at-bats to add on to his resume? So I worry about that a little bit. Overall, I don't think it will kill cards, but for the individual players, that's why I have a little concern.
Otani peak year, Freddie Freeman 3,000 hits, Manny Machado 3,000 hits, Mookie getting to 100 WAR, Juan Soto doing whatever Juan Soto is going to do. And so it's tough. You guys ready for the second statement?
Yeah.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes will have more value than Shohei Ohtani in the long run. 3, 2, 1. Show him.
Wow, I like this spread.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Phil, you're 4. You start us off.
I think because of Mahomes' age and what he's accomplished already, I don't think necessarily what he's doing is more impressive than Otani, but I think it might be more remembered than Otani. He's on a trajectory right now, potentially, depending on the outcome of the game in a couple of weeks, that could be ahead of Tom Brady, who's widely considered the best ever. And Mahomes has some of those like underlying stats, the rushing stats, and some of the equivalent to WAR for football. If there was such an agreed upon formula, it would have him at a higher WAR than Brady because of the completions and the QBR and all the antiquated stats and stuff that go into that. But I think a lot of this just has to do with the trajectory, how old Otani is right now. And they could both wear down.
Are they the same age right now, Phil? Like right now, I think they're the same age, right? 30 and 30.
They're very close. Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. Without what Mahomes has accomplished, almost 4 Super Bowls.
I think Mahomes is 28 or 29.
Yeah. So
sorry to read your train of thought. Keep going. But I think
the difference a little bit here is like quarterbacks can still be very, very productive when they're 35. Some, not all. And Mahomes has
or 45, like Brady.
Yeah. Mahomes doesn't run as much as he used to, and he's proven to be effective this year in the regular season, last year in the regular season, a little bit down. But like, is his regular season actually the AFC Championship, and that's when he starts trying because nothing else matters? Like, it seems like they have so many tricks they pull out of a hat. So if football continues to be assessed and measured based on playoff success, right now, I think Josh Allen is 0 for 4 in the playoffs against Mahomes. And a lot of people consider Josh Allen to be the best player in football. Again, I don't know if it's fair. I have cards of both of them, and it's just a hunch, and a lot of it depends on Otani's health and Patrick Mahomes' health. I just think Mahomes right now is a better bet to be relevant 5-6 years from now with regards to like current season contributions. And that could extend what he's done so far, which has been really impressive already. Mahomes is also closer right now to all-time GOAT considerations. And there's going to be some viewers that disagree. And hey, if a lot of you probably think Otani's already the GOAT based on what he's shown, and you can't compare him to Babe Ruth because of this, and that. I just think that more people would say that Mahomes is a top 2 player of all time already, or top 3. And people would be more reticent to say that about Ohtani. Some of those folks might have a little bit of a vintage bias, but even if you remove those folks, I still think there's a lot of modern day collectors that wouldn't consider Ohtani in their top 3. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Bill, who do you compare Patrick Mahomes to?
In another sport or in
No, in football. Who do we compare him to like see if he's the GOAT?
Himself.
Tom Brady, who just retired, 4, 5, 6 years ago? Who do we compare Otani to? Babe Ruth from over 100 years ago.
The guy that Baltimore just signed, Sugano.
But I see you're saying. I said one. I think people think I'm an Otani hater. I'm not, because I'm actually defending him right now. I think what he's doing is so rare. It's transcended baseball, which is one of those things that just doesn't happen. And so I do think his cards are going to hold a premium. It's tough. It depends. Football is more popular in America than baseball is currently by a large margin. But Otani does have the Otani factor. Plus he has the Japan factor. He's going to be one of the most famous, if not the most famous player ever in the history of Japan sports. So I do think that helps a little bit, where there will always be a buyer pool there. Both of them can't really go wrong with either. I do think that Patrick Mahomes has already done more than Otani has. 3 MVPs for Otani with 1 World Series. How many MVPs does Mahomes have?
He has 2 MVPs and 3 Super Bowl MVPs.
And maybe a 4th. Like that's pretty crazy. But it's one of those things where we talk about baseball playoffs don't matter. So if that's the case, he already has the once. Nobody can question it. I don't know. That's why I said 1. But I see the argument against. Ty, you're in the middle. What were you thinking?
Yeah, I went 3. Somebody actually asked me this exact question Saturday at trade night. Came up to me and said, hey, I've got Otani cards. I've got Mahomes cards. Which one's the better long-term hold? And I just said, who's the better long-term hold? Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, or Wayne Gretzky? Like,
that's a good point, Ty.
It's just, there's no, with these 2 guys in this generation right now, forecasting what they've already, just look at what they've already done, plus forecasting ahead. Even if they do some shadow of what they've already done, they're clearly the best players of their respective generations in their respective sports. So I, started looking into some things after the game on Sunday when the Chiefs beat the Bills. Pulled up StatHead and compared the first 6 seasons for both Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, which coincidentally was the exact same number of games. And I think green is good for Mahomes. So everything is green. There's literally not one thing that Brady has outpaced him on so far. Tom Brady was really, really good. And in fact, if you go and you look at his stats, it's about at this point, heading into the second of 3/3 in his career, long career, that he started to get really good. And he started putting up some really good stats. His early Super Bowls and early seasons, several of them were frankly won by the Patriots defense and by just an overall team, dynamic. So there's massive differences, 245 touchdowns versus 197. So the pace right now for Mahomes is there. When you have Tom Brady cards, his Contenders Auto, selling for $2.7 million, football's a big market. It has a lot of momentum right now in the sports card hobby. But also a lot of volatility, a lot of risk, a lot of potential that it even collapses in on itself because of how much money people are pumping into quarterback prospecting. And yet year after year, what do we see? The Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes back in the AFC Championship, if not the Super Bowl, literally every single season. So he's sort of running away with the football card dynamic right now, to where people are calling for Josh Allen and, Lamar Jackson's cards to be officially ruled as dead, because they'll just never get past Patrick Mahomes. Or if they do happen to squeak by 1 year, nobody will really give two craps about it, because he just keeps going back and back and back every single season. But I don't have to rattle off to our audience everything that Shohei Ohtani has done. So to me, it's like I could have gone 2 or 3 on this question. I really don't think either one is a bad bet long term. Knowing that Ohtani's had multiple Tommy Johns and more injury issues than Mahomes has, and Phil brought up the point that at quarterback, there was a video where the guy was talking about how, Mahomes, Phil alluded to this, Mahomes ran a lot earlier in his career, and after he basically hyperextended his knee in 2019, the Chiefs didn't call a designed run play for him until the Super Bowl last year, when they did it twice, when Andy Reid pulls a rabbit out of a hat when they need it for him to win games. So yesterday, as of recording this video, Sunday, when they played the Bills and they won, was the most I've seen Patrick Mahomes look like Patrick Mahomes in probably 2 years. And he looked crisp. He looked healthy. It did look like he turned on a different level of play. It's going to be a really interesting Super Bowl. If he goes out there and wins another one, I mean, these are like stats you've literally never seen in anything. Jordan never did this like this early in his career. You're talking about basically a Jordan stretch of football, which, is even harder to do than in basketball. It's harder to run a dynasty in football than it is in basketball. So both guys are slam dunk. I like the question, and both guys are really good long-term investments, in my opinion. As long as you're not buying at a hype point.
Can I ask a few questions to everybody here about football?
Can I give my opinion first before you answer?
Well, I wanted to ask this about Ty's point. Yes, you can give your opinion, but is football the same as it was back then, like in regards to offensive environment? Is that why his numbers are higher, or is it because
football's definitely different? Defense is far less effective. So somebody could argue in terms of almost like a golf handicap that 237 yards would be the same as 289 today.
That was my question.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff.
Yeah, a lot to be said here in comparison with the Brady, as Ty was talking about. Those first 6 years, Brady was kind of a system quarterback, right? He was more along for the ride. I can't imagine we could see any sort of similar growth leap for Mahomes, because I don't know where he could go. But if he somehow manages to take it to makes a Brady type jump in his second, third, it would be incredible.
He's actually been regressing a little too, which makes me nervous. But
yeah, well, and the other thing is, though, this is his worst team that he's had in years, and the fact that he still gets them to the Super Bowl is incredible. I think Ohtani, I'm on board with Scott because of his worldwide recognition and worldwide significance. My two concerns are that football is getting bigger. It's bigger in America for sure than baseball, and it's getting more accepted worldwide. So that's something. The other thing is, in football, there's less players to invest in. I mean, it's typically quarterbacks, and that's it. So there's fewer places to put your money, and especially after what Ty said, like after the games, the past couple of weeks, he is the guy. So even if you've already narrowed it down to a quarterback, he is the guy. So unlike baseball, where there are some significant superstars besides Ohtani, like Aaron Judge, and people want to put money in there, it seems to me, I can't imagine buying any football card if you're not going to buy Patrick Mahomes right now. I mean, unless like you're Scott, where he's too expensive with Ohtani, and you just feel like you've missed the boat on him. But so those are my concerns. That's why I was at a 2 rather than a 1. And I think Ohtani is going to be remembered. I think he is going to be valued by people outside of the United States and by collectors of baseball collectors other than just Dodger fans. So
interesting thing about football popularity. Youth participation in football is like the lowest it's ever been. I don't know how that's going to impact future impression of football. Baseball participation is the highest it's been since like the year 2000. Like baseball is doing great. That's another reason why this strike would be really dumb. So my point is, does that have any effect where if kids don't grow up playing football because their parents will let them, but they put them in baseball, and basketball participation, I'm sure is doing just fine. I didn't look. But basketball's less popular. Could baseball become the benefit of that? And that might help Ohtani too.
It's a good point. Just to piggyback just that one point on kind of for anybody who's watching, who's interested in Mahomes and the decline. Interesting that, he didn't start the final game of the season, so his record was 15-1. This was the weirdest not 15-1-ish season I've ever seen of any team ever. They won so many close games. They didn't have a great point differential. This was the most dominant season in any history. These were both of their 8th years in the league. Technically their seventh season starting for both of them. But this was Brady's best season. So he was just heating up when he hit this point, went 16-0. This is when he got Randy Moss and threw 50 touchdowns with 8 interceptions. These were the kind of stats that Mahomes was sniffing like when in his first and second years in the league. And he's continued to sort of regress statistically. And he does not look like the nimble, super, super ultra talented receiver. Like he was like the 15th highest scoring fantasy quarterback this year. So that is a little bit of a pause for me. But so are the Otani, surgeries and other things.
That's what I was going to say. The thing is, how many pitchers have successfully really pitched after second Tommy John? I bet you the list you could count on your hand that's been successful. So
yeah. And with Mahomes doing a counterpoint against him, poke holes in the thesis. A lot of people gave credit during Brady's run, especially towards the beginning, middle, and towards the end. Bill Belichick, right? Andy Reid is now being called potentially the best coach ever with Mahomes. So some of that is sort of confirmed or refuted after the fact. Like when a Brady-less Patriots got worse with Belichick, then everybody's like, well, he's trash. And Brady was awesome because then he went on to win with Tampa Bay, right? So, like, is there going to be sort of a dynamic that happens with, can Andy Reid even outlast Mahomes in the NFL?
How long does he want to play? How long does Mahomes want to play? Does he want to play till he's 45? He's got interests outside of football. I just think I don't think he's going to be there that long.
I will say Andy Reid is the winningest coach in Philadelphia Eagles history and Kansas City Chiefs history for two teams, which is pretty interesting.
I think if Mahomes winds up being like 38 years old and he's tracking still ahead of Brady, like I could see him. He's very competitive, obviously, so I could see him being like motivated to keep going. But if things just continue to sort of chunk down and he hits that point and he's won 6 Super Bowls, 7 Super Bowls, and is just like, I could just stop playing now, maybe.
If you give me $100,000, I had to put it into one card of one player. I'd put it in Otani. But that might be because I'm just comfortable with him, not because it's the right choice. I don't understand.
That's why you own so many Otanis.
Yeah.
No one gave me $100,000. So there you go. Someone gives me $100,000, I'll own one.
Start with 10.
Yeah.
Charizard.
Someone give me $10,000.
Charizard, true GOAT.
Yeah. We should talk about Mahomes' body type too while we're at it. So
next statement. You ready? eBay is still the best place to sell sports cards. Should we word that differently, or are we okay with that?
That's okay, I guess.
The average sports card, any sports card. Okay. 3, 2.
Sports card. That's tough.
Are we eliminating the number? We should eliminate the number 3. That'd make this show interesting if nobody could.
I've already self-eliminated it, Scott.
Good for you, Jeff. We should all be like Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do 3 every time then.
WWJD is not what would Jesus do. It's what would Jeff do. All right.
That's right.
3, 2, 1, go. Hey! Wow, I thought that was going to be
cardboard consensus.
Woo! Yeah, that has not happened. Maybe the first time.
That's never happened, actually, ever.
Best place. Most eyes usually go for the most money. Yes, you pay fees, but you pay fees on other sites too. Anything else?
Higher end stuff, maybe consider one of the auction houses away from eBay.
Especially if you're auctioning on some of it.
Yeah, exactly. And try to negotiate a better rate for yourself that's better than advertised, which can be done, and you have more leverage the more expensive the item is. Yeah, eBay, it's underrated in my opinion. Every once in a while, you get somebody complaining on social media, and they show you a screenshot of the breakdown of fees. Like, why did I lose 25%? It's like, well, you promoted the listing.
That's my thing. Usually promote it. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And it's a lot of fees, but like Scott said, it's the most eyeballs by far. You can list something at any time, day or night. It's you pay the fees, but you pay to play. I think they're reasonable.
Yeah.
Ty, anything else you want to add? That was pretty easy.
No.
I have another one.
I
Then.
mean, people think market movers should be free too, and I'm like, I need a paycheck. Like, I just, like this eBay. Yeah, they're a big company. The only thing I would say about eBay is I wish I could have more conversations with them from like a product development perspective and actually give them some good feedback on some things, because they should have the development resources to make big changes. And I think there's some things they could do to make the collector and the overall buying and selling experience better for cards. Some of the things they've done in recent years, I wouldn't have put at the top of my priority list in the backlog, but it's still by far and away. I mean, the volume is insane compared to.
Yeah, you guys talked about a few of those issues last episode when Chris was talking about what really grinded his gears about the fact that eBay would let you see the sold items.
Yeah,
they've got
some goofy things happen.
Some goofy things like that. Yeah.
Yep.
The vault was sweet when it was 0% selling fees for that temporary period, and then it was just like sweet. Market share play, and then it was sold, and then the rates now suck to the point where I don't use the PSA vault or whatever that is.
What are the rates now? I am not familiar. Never used it. What are they now?
It's about the same as eBay to sell. There's some benefits to like get it shipped and, pay a little bit less, like no tax or whatever. And I don't know. It's just the benefits for me, for my situation, aren't worth it. I do use a couple other vaults for like higher end things though.
All right. This one I can ask. I was debating on it, but we'll do it. Now is the time to buy players like Machado, Arenado, Verlander, Kershaw, all those Hall of Famers who are now struggling and their cards are dropping. Now is the time to buy their cards. 3. I don't even know what I'm going to vote. Do you guys need a second? I need a second.
I'm good.
3, 2, 1, go. If you believe in them, I think you buy them now. So you're going to get cheaper. Phil, you have 3. You're in the middle ground, cheater. What are you thinking?
Depends on the player.
Yep.
Yep. Arenado cards. I'm just not patient enough, man.
They're in a bad place right now.
And he could just keep on getting worse.
He could get in the worst place.
He's going to. And even if he went to the Yankees, it would be like Goldschmidt, where he's completely forgotten and lost on a bigger market team. Like, no offense, Scott.
He hasn't even played yet.
I'm sure the Tigers are going to give him 4 years, $160 million to come in and hit 223.
I'm surprised Scott didn't remind us that Paul Goldschmidt's WAR is higher than Ichiro's.
I didn't remind you that, but it is.
Yeah, might as well say it. Let's pull it up.
So is the OPS. So is the OPS plus. So is the
Machado is a guy like so. I had a bunch of cards of these players. I decided to sell most of the Arenados now and to hold on to Machado just because of last year, second half started to show a rebound. The hard hit rate, I think, is back. Like we're seeing prime Machado. He's just got to put that together for a full season. He was working off some kinks with like recovering from that injury or whatever, the elbow thing, right? In like the first half of the season, Jeff. But the overall numbers were pretty good. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, like when you put together seasons like that, the hobby doesn't appreciate it. When you have a bad first 2 months, the hobby's already sold your stuff and they're not looking at your final line till following off season. So now we're like, oh, wow, he's better than we thought. So he needs to have that like stronger first half, which
we call that the Julio Rodriguez paradox. That's what we call that.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's case by case basis, but like generally like guys that will be in the Hall of Fame, it would be a decent time to buy if you like the player and, you're bullish on their long-term prospects and popularity. Like a lot of these Hall of Famers that we're talking about, they're not going to, that doesn't mean they're going to be valuable. I know Jeff's covered this before. Just because you're in the Hall of Fame doesn't mean 5 years after the Hall of Fame, you've gotten in and everything doesn't mean you'll be widely collected. So like that, you still have to like sort out in your head and have some thesis for as well if you plan to hold like that far out.
You got to look at like you said a case per case basis. Kershaw, now is probably the time to buy a Kershaw because he has now 2 World Series. That is a little bit dead, which is nice. About hit 3,000 strikeouts this season. There's a lot of things about Kershaw that you can like. Other players, maybe not so much. Jeff, what do you think?
I was going to go case by case. I'm trying to stay away from them now. I feel like for some of them, you'll still get a better chance, like Arenado and Kershaw. I feel like there's more slide to go either soon or after they retire in that 5 years leading up to when people remember them. And I like where Pujols is getting to now, where people are starting to remember the good parts and forget about some of the bad. But I do like a guy like Machado, and I don't know if he quite fits into that because, yeah, like Phil said, he had a little bit of a struggle at the beginning of the year. He still ended up with pretty decent counting numbers, and he's already got, I think, 57 Baseball Reference WAR for his career. So I feel like he's not that there are more people noticing him. So I don't feel like he's quite as cheap as some of those other guys might be. And he's 30. This will be his age 32 season. He started out so young, so I feel like he's got some time left.
Okay, Ty.
I pretty much agree with all of that. I think there's still a little more runway. Wait until guys are truly at the end when they're not hitting the ball at all, and then when they retire, and that's usually the best window, I think, statistically. And there's a good amount of data and market movers to kind of show that with players too, to just see whether it's baseball or otherwise. Like Brady's cards have come down a ton. We just talked about him, so I mean he was performing at a high level up until he hung it up though. But Pujols stuff has come down. Many of them now, I think it is starting to kind of like dip back up. So I think usually right at that final stretch, get past that window, let people forget about them for a year before they're even being thrown around in the Hall of Fame ballot stuff, and that's the best time to buy.
Okay,
but I'll qualify that by saying one thing: if you really do believe in them long term, and you would love to own one of their cards too, like in your collection, and you see one come up right now, while they are, I think, down, relative to the last few years, some of those guys you mentioned, then I probably would go after it. Like if it's a card that you wouldn't expect to come up super often, something really low numbered, and you're like, I just really want to have this for the long term because I think it's an incredible card, especially if it's like a 1 of 1 or something really, really low serial numbered, then, don't let that scare you off from pursuing that card, because going after those top rare cards when they show up is always a good idea, I think.
You'll be surprised how many people collect a certain player. So if you buy like the most rare versions of those cards, it's not that hard to move them if you ever wanted to, even for a good profit. So anyways, those are the cardboard consensuses of the day. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you in the next video.